What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video. If you don't know who I am, that means you're new. I'm Mark. What's good with y'all? Go check out my other videos. Check them out. Check them out. But first, stay on this one. So, this is, a topic that was eventually going to come up, right? I've talked about almost every other position of carry other than this one, I believe. Maybe with the exception of strong side carry. I don't know if I've done a video on that, which if I haven't, I probably will do a video on that. You know what I mean? Because I like being as informative as I can be for y'all. So, without any further ado, you read the title, you saw the thumbnail. Let's get into it. My opinions on appendix carry. Now, appendix carry, I honestly can, I can say there's only one downside in my opinion to it, and it's genuinely just where the barrel is pointed, where the business end of your gun is pointed. And while I'm not the biggest fan of that, I am more than aware that if you get a good holster, a good Kydex holster, you're safe when you're reholstering. You make sure that your shirt is up, no cloth is, getting caught in the, in your holster. I am more than aware that appendix carry is, perfectly safe as long as you have a good holster, as I said, and you're careful when you're reholstering. I'm more than aware of that. I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh yeah, well, it's just not safe. Guys, we live in 2024. In all reality, firearm technology has gotten to the point to where, yes, you can appendix carry very much so safely. Now, moving on just from that aspect right there, right? There's not really too much bad I can say about appendix carry. One thing that I can say that I personally am not the biggest fan of, but you know what? This isn't my problem. You know what I mean? Is that I would appendix carry, except I have a tiny bit of, I guess we'll say, extra survival weight. You know what I mean? It's not even that I'm heavy anymore. I actually used to be a lot heavier when I was younger. And this is something I've never really talked about on the channel either. When I was a teenager, I was extremely overweight. I was 15 years old. I stood at like 5'3" maybe, and I weighed 237 pounds. No exaggeration. Dude, I was a chunky guy back then. You know what I mean? Now I'm 6'1", and I mean, last time I weighed myself, I was like 170, 175 pounds, but I've gotten to even less than that before. I've been 155 before. So that's neither here nor there. That's not my point I'm trying to get at. You know what I mean? Even when I was at my, lowest weight of 155 pounds, I always had a tiny bit of just extra skin as a whole. You know what I mean? Which makes it more difficult to appendix carry, which makes it a bit more uncomfortable for me, right? And that's just the unfortunate truth here that we all have to accept, that if you're a tiny bit heavier, or even if you just have some extra skin because you used to be heavier, but you lost the weight, appendix carry might not be the most comfortable position for you. Now, other than that, if you can find a way to get past appendix carry not being a comfortable position to carry for you, despite that, by all means, appendix carry is one of the quickest ways to carry. When I say quickest, I mean most easily accessible when it comes to a gunfight. Literally just you're lifting your shirt up, drawing it out. It's that quick. I'm aware, for example, with me, with my strong side, it's a similar thing where I'm lifting my shirt up and then drawing, but guess what? I have to lift my shirt up by crossing my arm over and then draw it out versus just lifting and bam. The appendix carry is the most accessible, and in my opinion, it is probably the best way to carry. The reason why I say that is because in a situation where you need your firearm, you need it right then. You don't want to sit there and, have to fumble with things. And, this might come off a bit hypocritical as me because I've mentioned plenty of times that I, carry strong side. However, there's a reason why I carry strong side. Once again, I just have that tiny bit of extra skin, which makes it a bit more uncomfortable for appendix carry. However, though, I've literally seen people who I know, who appendix carry, and they've flat out gone to sleep with their gun on their, on their hip. Appendix carry for people who legitimately are, skinny enough that it's not uncomfortable for them. It's pretty comfortable. It's a decently comfortable way to carry. It is the quickest, I guess not the quickest way to carry. That makes zero sense when you say that out loud, but the most accessible way to carry when it comes to needing it in certain situations, if you catch my drift. Uh, and something that not a lot of people talk about, but I kind of, am going to get into is with appendix carry, it's going to be a lot more comfortable for you to carry an extra magazine on your belt. Now, me, I carry extra magazines in my pocket. The reason why that is because the magazine holsters that you find are simply just not comfortable. Like, man, they are just not comfortable. That's not really it. And I'm not going to sit there and put that on my other hip right over here. It's just not that comfortable. So at that point, why would I sit there and make my, concealed carry experience more uncomfortable than it needs to be in that situation? I can just as easily access the mags in my pocket, and that's more comfortable for me. Now, that's beyond the point. I'm getting a tiny bit off topic here, but it's much easier when you're appendix carrying to, be able to carry an extra mag. As a matter of fact, some companies, I mean, a lot of companies actually, make holsters that have a spare magazine holster like attached to the holster for your gun. And it's specifically made for appendix carrying. So, I mean, once again, it's not it just there's not too many cons to appendix carry. That's not, it's I don't see too many issues with it. People love to, sit there and I can't remember who it was. I believe it was Ken Hackathorn or however you say that man's name. He's got a weird name. I believe it was him who's like, oh yeah, well every time you appendix carrying, you have a potential decocker, trying to make a joke talking about how you might, you might blow your wobbly bits off. I guess is a is a YouTube appropriate way to say it. But in all reality, once again, that's only if you are not safe while reholstering and if you have a garbage holster. Now, what might be considered a garbage holster when it comes to appendix carry? When it comes to appendix carry, you don't want a leather holster. You don't want a cloth holster. You generally don't want something that can conform to the trigger guard or around the trigger over time. What you want is a hard plastic, Kydex, polymer, whatever, as long as it's a hard plastic material that, prevents anything from getting in the trigger guard, and you are careful while reholstering, meaning if you are reholstering, you're sitting there, you have your shirt up, and you are making sure there's no cloth getting into the middle of it, you should have no problem. Now, another thing too that not a lot of people think about is people sit there and act like, oh yeah, well you're always going to have to reholster your loaded gun. I barely take my gun out of my holster. I mean, if I need to, I take it out like once a week to, get some dust and whatever's built up, on and off. I take it out whenever I take it shooting, but I just take the holster off of me. I don't need to separate the gun from the holster. So therefore, that entire argument makes really no sense. The only way that works is if you were just in a case of self-defense. And in all reality, in a majority of those cases where you're in a case of self-defense, the police need to be called, which means you're more likely than not going to have your firearm cleared. So why would you even go to reholster it anyways? You're not going to sit there and draw it while the police are there. I don't know. There's just a lot of flaws when people try making arguments against appendix carry. But in all reality, it just seems like the most logical way to carry. It's the quickest way for you to be able to draw. It makes it easiest for you to carry an extra mag. I mean, if you're going to carry an extra mag in your pocket, then it really doesn't matter what position you're carrying in that aspect. But all in all, there aren't too many cons to appendix carry. Now, me personally, do I like the idea of a firearm, pointing at my Johnson? No, not at all. However, I'm more than aware that the mechanical advancements in firearm technology is beyond what it was way back when, even now compared to like the 80s, when Glock was first created, right? And that's 40 years. All right, the only situations that have happened where negligent discharges have happened because of appendix carrying is due to negligence, not to the firearm or because of the position it was carried in. It was due to negligence, like people having their finger on the trigger or cloth getting caught up in the holster. It can happen regardless. You know what I mean? So the entire point of it is simply be careful when reholstering, and that pretty much covers my only issue that I have with appendix carry. Other than that, there's really no cons to it. I mean, appendix carry, you get to, as I said, you get to draw quickest, extra mag at most comfortability when it comes to carrying an extra mag too, if you're going to carry one on your hip. Let me see here. In a fight, it's going to be much easier to retain your firearm, and not to mention, most people aren't going to, some people might be bold, but most people aren't going to try to reach near, you know what I'm saying, near your privates to try to get, get your gun. Some people might, but my point is that overall, there aren't too many cons for appendix carry. I know I've kind of been all over the place here when it comes to this video. However, I was kind of excited to make this one because this is one of the few positions of carry where I see little to no problems with. With that being said, I think that about wraps it up for this video. Y'all make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that bell. When you hit that bell, hit all. And if you agree with me, I personally believe, back in English, oh gosh, here we go. I personally believe that appendix carry is probably the best way to conceal carry. And I mean, it seems self-evident as to why after I explained it all. But if you agree with me, make sure to check out all my other videos. Y'all make sure to stay legal, stay safe, stay dangerous. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.